Welcome to the Celebration of You. I'm your host, Holly Dowling. I'm thrilled to share with you incredible people from all over the world who are living and leading extraordinary lives. From overcoming immense adversity to discovering the secret sauce to leading with courage and grace. Their stories are going to bring you hope and inspiration. Now let the stories begin. Hi, everybody, and so excited and grateful for all of you listening from around the world. And as always, I like to kick this off by just extending the ultimate gratitude, huge praise, gratitude, and appreciation for the people we're now in 160 countries. And I can't even fathom the magnitude of the stories that we're sharing and the lives that we're touching. And I thank each and every one of you out there, and I thank you for your messages. So, I always get goosies. Sometimes we cry, I laugh, whatever happens, happens. No scripts. Most of the time, my eyes are closed. The guest today that I am absolutely elated to introduce you to. So, I always share the story of how I meet amazing people that I believe are living extraordinary lives. And this individual, who I feel we are so connected spiritually, mentally, in every way, we met several years ago, as he was one of the key leaders and co-CHRO of the GAP organization. And we'll talk more about that in a moment. And we met at an event, and it was great. I got to serve and speak to his leaders, but more importantly, we got to spend some time connecting. And it's when you meet people that, yes, they are a leader and changing lives and creating opportunities to empower lives. But when you spend one-on-one time with them, and I'm going to get a little emotional, because this particular man, I will never forget the most spiritual and beautiful brilliance and wisdom that I experienced in 2 hours of a conversation. And he was so completely present. So to the world, I am honored, delighted, and feel very privileged to get to introduce to you one of my dear friends and amazing global leaders, Eric Severson. Eric, thank you for being here, my friend.
Well, Holly, that's the kindest and most generous introduction I've ever received. And I'm extraordinarily thrilled to be here.
Oh, well, thank you. You deserve every word of it. And my eyes are closed because I'm smiling as I think about, I can picture, how you can remember a moment, and not that I'm expecting you to remember this, Eric, don't worry, but how you can remember a moment when you're sitting with somebody, you can picture the environment where we were, what you're wearing. Mm-hmm. That's the impact you made because you bring your whole self, Eric. And just to think, like, now you are leading the people and CHR. I mean, you are like the people. Tell us what you're doing at DaVita, because what you're doing is like huge, and you're making huge impact already on a company that's growing and been building really fast. Let's talk about what you're doing today, and then we'll talk about what you're doing a little bit of the past, because I want to go there. So you're Chief People Officer for DaVita right now, right?
I am. Yeah, I'm really blessed to have this role, because what I'm accountable for is guiding the organization around everything involving helping teammates here reach their full potential. So what we do as a business is we provide dialysis services for several 100,000 patients across the US and 12 other countries. And that's, as you know, a life-giving therapy that people have to have in order to live and survive. And it's remarkably gratifying to be able to do the work that you love to do. And the outcome of that work is actually life-saving. So my job really is to help the organization figure out how to find the best talent and how to help that talent, once we find it, reach its full potential, help people figure out how to have extraordinary careers here, and to keep getting better and growing and learning while they're inside the organization, kind of all in service to delivering the best patient care. And it's my first time working in healthcare. And I would have to say, I love my jobs everywhere I've been. I love this profession. I love spending my time and spending my life figuring out how to help people in the pursuit of doing something that probably 98% of working age people have to do, which is to work for a living, how to help them do that in a way that is not just paying the bills, but is also fulfilling them by helping them learn and grow in ways that expand on the workplace. That's how I view this job. But to be able to do that in service to something that's so vitally important to people and their families is even better.
Oh, and I'm just sitting here thinking about, right? Like, you're right. What a dichotomy to go from you were passionate about all the employees and all the Gap brands, right? And you spent 15 years, correct me if I'm wrong, but you were with those brands for 15 years.
I was.
Right. And that's retail. And now, just the person I've known you to be, to think that you're getting to create this culture and empower people that whose jobs depend on making a difference and saving lives.
It's true. And they're very difficult jobs. Caregiving is perhaps the most rewarding job a person can have, and sometimes the most difficult. For our teammates, for example, because of the nature of end-stage renal disease, which requires dialysis, a lot of our patients die in the course of their care, and they come to our centers typically 3 days a week, 4 hours per treatment. So that's 12 hours a week. Our teammates are caring for their patients, and they develop close relationships with them. So part of the beauty, but sometimes the tragedy of these jobs is that you're caring for people and then they leave. So that's, of course, part of life, but there's a high concentration and intensity of that for our caregivers. So to me, part of what the job is about is finding ways through programs and practices to help caregivers continually rejuvenate themselves and their ability to continue to give the care.
Knowing that inevitably, like the long-term survival, right, is not great. So it's like when you just said, and I'm fascinated, and I know you've done tremendous amount of work. You're passionate about people. You've done a lot of work of bringing, the science of the brain, a lot of good work around that and psychology. At the end of the day, Eric, like right now, as I'm listening to you, what would you share with our listeners that are corporate or not corporate? Just what are you most passionate about that you're bringing in and helping to empower them to truly love to go to work and find that giving and doing this is something that, you're all about joy and finding joy in your work. How are you doing that? How does that work in this industry that you're in now?
Sure. But there's so many things, but perhaps foremost among them for me is finding ways for people to learn how to use their mind to its fullest advantage in service to their own well-being. And by that I mean that the brain has so much potential, and there's so much evidence out there that happiness is as much a function of how we choose to think about what happens to us as it is about what happens to us, probably more so. And as an employer, one of the ways that you can create a virtuous cycle, and by that I mean a cycle wherein you can get the most out of your teammates so that they are providing the best service to your patients, your customers, while at the same time, they themselves are growing and learning and discovering things that can help them be happier in all of their life. You have this captive audience, right, whom you can affect in a positive way by putting in place systematic programs and policies that teach them the best way to use and grow their mind. And one of the things I'm most gratified by is living at a time where more has been discovered about the mind and the brain and how to harness its power really in the last 10 years than in all of human history before that. And that's not my assessment. That's assessment of a neuroplasticity expert I know. And to me, that just means at both the Gap and here, one of the things we focus on is how do you help people manage their own performance so that they get the most out of it. And in both places, one of the things that we've done is reinvent our performance management system, leveraging so many of the insights from psychology, like growth mindset, and neuroplasticity, like David Rock's SCARF model, for example, which teaches us how to talk with people and how to have conversations and how to give feedback in a way that doesn't trigger our fight or flight response, so that we actually can hear and integrate the feedback. So to me, there's a great paradox that I love embracing in leading HR and putting in place teammate development programs, which is that the intersection of science and in the heart or the human aspect creates something really beautiful. So that science is not necessarily this cold, hard, inhumane discipline, that in fact, when you incorporate scientific ideas like growth mindset or neuroplasticity into human systems, like a performance management system, you actually help human beings be better and realize more of their dreams. And I think at Gap, just to get to cold hard measurement, we found that we implemented our growth mindset and neuroplasticity based performance system called GPS, or Grow, Perform, Succeed. We measured quantitatively significant improvements in the quality of conversations that leaders had with their teammates that resulted in improved performance. And improved performance helps the whole organization and helps the team to thrive and be more secure. And every individual as well. Every person, I don't know a single person I've ever met who doesn't want to be a great performer at life. Everyone wants to be a great parent, a great spouse, a great employee. It's a fallacy that some people just don't want to perform. They all want to perform. And I think it's our duty and responsibility as employers to figure out how to get the most out of people, and leveraging evidence-based practices is the most effective, efficient way.
Do you know, every time I talk to you, I just always sit here and smile and I write. You should see all the notes I've been writing because, and I think I remember a nugget about the GPS when you guys were just getting into the heart of, creating that. And it's fascinating, Eric, because when you get to hear your voice, you come alive. You're so passionate about this. And you're right. There's not a human being out there that doesn't want, and the word you used that I don't want anyone to miss, performance for life. It's who we are, right? And things get in the way, whether it's things from society or whatever it is, right? Maybe we're battling some depression, mental health. I mean, all of this is all part of the whole person. And I know it's something you're passionate about. And I don't want to miss something, because what's crazy about you, and I want everybody to know, yes, you wear and have had these very strong, very big leadership roles in companies. You also are the epitome of giving back. I cannot even begin to read all the different boards that you're sitting on right now. You're director of a board, you're sitting on boards. You have a passion for the years you spend giving back in a nonprofit. Will you tell us about that nonprofit? And I don't know if you're still involved, but you were heavily involved in San Francisco.
Sure. I've been involved in quite a few.
Yeah, imagine that, Eric.
and one of the reasons I've been involved in that way through board service is that I discovered maybe 17 years ago or so that I could harness all of the investment that different companies had made in me, in developing me, and for free be able to give that knowledge and expertise and experience as an in-kind donation to nonprofit organizations who are generally always squeezed for resources, and that was the most valuable contribution that I could make. So for 15 years, I was on the board of the Felton Institute in San Francisco, which is the behavioral health provider that focuses on a number of things, but two of the most important are schizophrenia and bipolar remediation. And they have one of the best schizophrenia remediation programs in the world, evidence-based programs that has been successful in putting early onset schizophrenia into remission. And it's so exciting to me. And what I was able to contribute in that role is to take all of these insights I've accrued over the years in business and gift them to the organization. And since then I have left that organization. I retired last year from that board. And I'm now on the HR People and Strategy Board, which is one of the arms of the Society of Human Resources Management. Mm-hmm. I'm also on the board of the Lanapool Arts Foundation based here in Denver. I'm on the advisory board of the University of Colorado, Denver Business School. And these are all just ways to do the same thing. And so I have encouraged so many other people I have encountered and those whom I've mentored and counseled over the years to get involved in nonprofit board service if they are so inclined, to be able to give more than just money, to be able to give something invaluable, which is in some cases, in my case, nearly 30 years of business experience. And that's just an invaluable contribution.
You know what's powerful is I don't think I've ever heard anyone articulate the reason to be on boards the way you just did. And I say this with love, but there's a lot of leaders out there that listen to this show. And one of the things I find, especially when I'm working with a lot of leaders around the world and they're getting close to like retirement, what's next? And it's always looked at as, well, I guess I should start sitting on more boards. And we look at boards as we're looking to do it for, I don't know, for self-gratification. I don't know what it is. Eric, the way you just articulated that gave it the most beautiful lens in which take the blessings, gifts, and knowledge and wisdom that you've been so fortunate to gain through all these, the years of being in there, working with these companies, and give it back. And to me, looking at it like that, no wonder you sit on so many. I'm glad you have time to even have a life, Eric.
Well, may I offer you one more insight about
Please.
Board service, Holly?
Yes. Yeah.
So earlier I mentioned the concept of the virtuous cycle, and it's something that I'm very passionate about, because I fundamentally believe one of the core principles behind the universe, our environment, the earth, is the cyclical nature of things and equilibrium. And even in board service, what allows it to be sustainable, what allowed me to stay on the Felton Institute board for 15 years, is the virtuous cycle. So no one is able to give in a one-way fashion indefinitely. For things to be sustainable, all participants in the ecosystem need to be getting something out of it. There needs to be synergy. And what I found about board service is, if you approach it with the spirit I described, that I have a desire to give something that has been given to me and pass it on. And at the same time, in so doing, I will discover that I will get in return experiences that enrich me. In my particular case, I had the opportunity when I first joined the Felton board nearly 17 years ago to get experiences that I was not yet ready to get in my for-profit career. So managing a CEO, for example, which is what you do as the board of any organization, and being involved in some very high-level organizational decisions and high-stakes decisions gave me leadership and management experience in a condensed short amount of time that it took me years to get at the corporation, and that benefited my corporate career. So I just really believe that the most fruitful relationships in life are always synergistic.
And virtuous. I love that. I could see a visual when you said that. It's the cycle of life and the cycle of the universe, and energy and abundance, and too much is given, much is expected, right? And we keep giving back and not take any of that for granted. Oh, see, this, Eric, is why I absolutely love you from the moment I met you years ago. It's just this wisdom that pours out from your brilliance and your soul. Okay, so we have to go somewhere because, and I don't even know, I'm just going to ask you this because I love to know this about my amazing guests, but take us back to your earlier years. You have gone on to do amazing things. You're living your passion. You've been able to inspire and empower a lot of lives through the leadership roles and what you believe in. But go back to your younger years as, I don't know, maybe a young boy, maybe early education. I don't know when this is. Was there a pivotal moment for you? And maybe it was overcoming a huge obstacle or fighting through some adversity that has really been pivotal for you in how you're choosing to live your life? Because you do so much giving back.
I think there's many pivotal moments, Holly, maybe not just one. They're aggregated. I was fortunate enough to grow up on a farm in Pennsylvania. I'm not sure I thought I was fortunate at the time, but I see it as fortunate now. And so throughout my childhood, what I learned was above all else, responsibility. And part of that was that even as a fairly young kid, the animals depended on me. I remember getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning before school to go feed the pigs and the horses. And after school, I got off the school bus, not at our small farm, but at the large horse farm up the road. And, it was my responsibility to take care of, in this case, it'd be 50 of the horses, everything about them, their food, their water, cleaning their environment and stuff. And this was a lot of responsibility as I reflect back on it as a kid. And it really taught me that people depend on you and beings depend on you, and you have a responsibility. So I feel blessed that much was expected of me. And I've always believed what a good friend of mine, Mike Robbins, has wisely opined about what he's observed as a leadership coach about both great parenting and great leadership. And what he says is that both great parenting and great leadership are equal parts very high expectations and very high nurturing. And whenever the formula's off, whenever you only have one or the other, like if you just have high expectations but not high nurturing, you often end up with an individual who lacks competence and needs reassurance. If you have very high nurturing and low expectations, you end up with the opposite of growth mindset, a fixed mindset, where people are not continuously trying difficult things and therefore getting stronger and getting better. So I'm a big believer in that philosophy, and I think that I had the benefit of getting both very high nurturing and very high expectations. There's a lot of adversity along the way, I would say, in my life, and one of the key dimensions of that was growing up in the 1970s and 1980s as a gay kid and a gay man in a world that wasn't ready to accept that. And a lot of pain and difficulty from rejection and other things. And now, though, as I reflect on it, I reflect on that contrast and difficulty as a blessing to me. And you might say, well, that's easy to say in hindsight, but the way I've reframed it is that those experiences did two things. One, they really developed a resilience in me for hardship. And two, they helped me understand what it feels like to be an outsider. And in all aspects of my life, and particularly in my job, I am exquisitely sensitive to human systems and whether they create an environment of belonging for everyone to contribute to their fullest potential, or whether they are, whether inadvertently or advertently, excluding people from participating and therefore hurting everyone. So one of my greatest passions in my professional life has been around what's historically been called diversity and inclusion. And at DaVita, we've renamed belonging. And I'm a big advocate of the emerging belonging movement, because I think the concept of inclusion is something that's been around for a couple of decades. And I think that it's awesome. And we're ready in the 21st century for the next act, which to me goes beyond inclusion, which I see as a remedy for a world that was exclusive, where the majority excluded many people who were minorities. And I think most people who consider themselves in some way a minority, whom I've spoken with over the years, will say, oh, it's so much better to be included in what the majority is doing than to be excluded. But I'd so much rather if we all just belonged. And so my crusade at the moment is about creating an environment of belonging wherever I am accountable, that's agnostic of anyone's unique characteristics, where everyone just belongs. And it's a big campaign at DaVita right now, and I'm really proud of it.
Oh, okay. So Eric, I am literally sitting here with I'm like so close to the microphone because my eyes are closed and I'm smiling. When you said the traditional D&I, because I do a lot of work in that space, and you're seeing a lot of movement of people saying we're no longer going to be D, we're just going with the I, right? Like inclusion. Let's all be inclusion. I have never heard until this moment belonging. I absolutely love that. And wouldn't that be the biggest crusade globally? Take it out of the corporate world and just create a human movement of belonging.
That's my goal, and it's why I brought it up in our conversation, because I want everyone to reflect on it. And very quickly, what I will tell you, where it comes from, among other places, is Maslow's hierarchy of need, which has been really rediscovered in the last few years and evolved. And the reason it's so powerful is that pretty much universally people have accepted that all humans, regardless of age, race, gender, geography, do have all of the 5 basic needs Maslow identified. And one of those needs was belonging, the need to belong. And why I love it so much is that we have universally accepted that Maslow's hierarchy is universal. It applies to everyone, everywhere equally. So how wonderful to conceptualize that belonging belongs to everyone. It is not just for minorities. It is not just for the majority. It is for everyone. Everyone has a right to belong wherever they are. And I think that expands the conversation in a really beautiful way.
It really does. And you know what? I just learned something that I had no idea. When you took us right back to Maslow, right? Like the fact that this has been living in that, and yet how have we exploded it, and how are we bringing that to the forefront? It makes so much sense. As human beings, there isn't a human being on the face of this earth, Eric, that isn't, I call it malnourished from emotional malnourishment. We need to feel we belong. We want to feel we're cared about, right? And we are appreciated. Oh, I just love that. And I have to tell you something. I didn't realize this till you just took us back to your younger years on the farm. Where in Pennsylvania? Because I grew up in Pennsylvania too, my friend.
Oh my gosh, I forgot that. We lived, and my parents still live literally up the street within eyeshot of our original house in northeastern Pennsylvania, north of Scranton, Pennsylvania.
Okay. Well, I think we knew this, but I forgot about it because I lived in Allentown, Bethlehem, and Reading.
Yeah, I've been to all of those places.
Yeah, once you've been in Pennsylvania, you kind of move around. You've been to all of them. And you know, the other thing, and I just don't want anybody to miss it, because it's a word that you just articulated. It's also a word that's a big buzzword out there right now. I also believe that resilience, we haven't given ourselves as human beings enough celebration over where we've come and what we've been through. I just spoke at an event this week, and it was predominantly for women from around the world. But I love to tap into, you know, it's the stuff that we've been through, that we've gone through, we've overcome, that has made us resilient. And it's the fuel that has made you rich in character and beautiful. And when you just said, you used that word resilience, Eric, you know, and I don't even know if you know this, but just in the last few years, I came clean and started talking about some of my dark past. I was really scared to, and I don't know what it was. I don't know if it was shame. Would people still want to hire me if I look like a damaged goods, you know? And all of that said, when I was able to embrace it, and like you just said, depending on the time we grew up and growing up myself in the 70s, the resilience though, I'm so proud to know that it's made me strong as a human being. And now we can give back to the world. And now it's like, wow, when I healed another level. I didn't realize the number of people that would heal by hearing our stories, right? And giving them the gift of knowing you're not alone. You're not the only one. So,
that's beautiful.
Well, it's
you said something, so you applied something so important, Holly, which is, I think for many years, and maybe many people still think that resilience is synonymous with drive and tenacity and perseverance. And my discovery is that that's only half of it, that resilience is those things plus the rejuvenating, restorative practices that allow you to continue to have that drive and perseverance. All drive and all perseverance and leads one to exhaustion. And one of the things that's been the biggest blessing in my life has been discovering mindfulness practices many years ago when I started meditating on a daily basis and truly discovering something that's so hard to discover, especially as an American, that strength comes from resilience, which comes from balancing the expenditure of energy with the recovery of energy, and that strong people have recovery rituals as well. If you look at any amazing long-term athlete, for example, and you study them up close, you learn that what differentiates them most from average athletes is their recovery practices. And that's not just my opinion, that's come from human performance science, from the Human Performance Institute, in fact. And this is something that I work on a regular basis to get better at, because I'm not as good as I want to be.
The fact that you have an awareness and then you've implemented, right, things to put into your life, like meditation. I'm such a firm believer in it's my morning ritual every single day, no matter where I am in this world. And no one gets it from me. And I totally get the fact that you have implemented that, Eric. And right, well, we can always keep growing and working on that. I just think that's powerful. And we're seeing a lot around mindfulness in the corporate arena too. Now it's not just fluffy stuff to talk about. It's, again, going back to the start of our conversation, but there's a scientific proof and scientifically based research to say how important it is for our mind, body, and soul, right? So now, okay, let's think about it. Let's talk about it. We can do this.
Well, you may remember that one of the keystone talent programs we developed at Gap in this area was called Performance for Life. And the tagline was Better You, Better Gap. And the program consisted of a number of evidence-based practices so we could teach our teammates literally performance for life habits that, if they chose to adopt them through our help, would benefit them in their performance at Gap, but also for their whole life, ergo performance for life. It was a virtuous cycle-oriented program, and a number of the modules were about mindfulness-based practices that teammates could use to restore and rejuvenate their energy, which would so often get depleted through the normal activities of work and living.
And I totally remember that, Performance for Life. And just to think about where you guys were when you were creating that and rolling it out. And that was like you were on the forefront, right, of what has become a viral corporate knowledge, and people are grabbing at it. Like everybody's trying to implement this now and rolling it out and giving their employees and team members opportunities to explore this. But you guys were like ahead of the curve, I think. I really do. Oh.
Well, thank you. I'm really proud of the program and have learned much from it, and tried to leverage what we learned everywhere I go for the rest of my career.
And it sounds like even in everywhere you're giving back, and even in your personal life. So right. My friend and our dear friend, Mike Robbins, I do want to give him a shout out. He was just on my show last month, and I'm going to be on his show next month. So our, 6 degrees of separation, all of us, you stay close with the people that I always like to re-emphasize this, but be very selective on the people you spend your quality time with, because they can lift you up or deplete you. And it's been a joy having you in my life. I love having you in my life. And no matter how often or not often we get to connect, it always just lifts my spirits. And Eric, as we wrap this up, you've just been a vessel of so much wisdom and goodness. And I'm going to use the word yumminess and juiciness because it just flows out of you. What would be just parting and giving, if you were to go back and give your younger self some advice, and maybe it wasn't as young as the young boy waking up at 5 a.m. on the farm, but maybe it was high school or early college, maybe that early 20-year-old self, what advice would you give that young man based on who you are and what you know today?
Maybe above all else, that life is meant to be good, and life is meant to be fun, and life is meant to be about love and human relationships and being a human being and not just a human doing. And it probably took me another 20 years or so to fully learn that through the experience of life. But if I could have understood that earlier, I think that much of my early life could have been less painful and more joyful. And I don't regret a moment of it now because of the learning I had. And at the same time, I do think we all have a responsibility to help young people we encounter be their best selves and understand what we've learned about life, which is above all else that this, I think we use a phrase here at DaVita often, this is not a dress rehearsal, this is your life, which is about joy in the journey. It is about the profound understanding that there isn't some place you have to get at the end of your life. It's not about living your life so you can have a great retirement. Like, life is about enjoying every moment right now. And I try with all my might to remember that every day. And I think that for me is the path to happiness. And it's truly what has enriched my life and enabled me to be able to spend more of my focus giving to other people.
Eric, I'm just sitting here and there's this word as my eyes are closed, and I'm sure you've heard this word a lot in your lifetime, but the word that's coming to me as I'm listening to you is you are a pure pillar of enlightenment. Enlightenment. It's like you enlighten. There is an enlightenment that you bring to our world. So I just want to thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you.
Well, Holly, it's a blessing to be given the opportunity to be here, and especially to talk with you. You are a joy, and I thank you.
Oh, well, we will be connecting again. I will let you know when I'm in your neck of the woods, okay?
You better.
All right, my friend. Go have an amazing, blessed, wonderful day, and we'll talk soon. Thank you.
Okay,
Bye.
Holly.
Bye. Thank you for joining me for another awesome celebration of you. If you were inspired by this story, please share it with your family and friends and hashtag Your Story Matters. I'd love to hear from you, so please leave a comment on iTunes. And absolutely, please come to my website, hollydowling.com. Leave a comment there too, and while you're there, pick up your free gift. Most importantly, though, just remember that your life is a gift from God. What you do with it is your gift back.